that first belief that you made just then and there in that simple, very fast scenario, which paved the way for the way you think the rest of your life, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, the RTT helped me to go back to like very core memories of and have that understanding and clarity around why I was the way I was and why I thought the things that I thought.
That week, the Christmas week of 2010, was the loneliest period I had ever experienced in my life, because
our problems are always elusive to us. And, you know, if you've been feeling like you need to do some kind of self-work to understand yourself better, or you want to get rid of an issue that you've been struggling with for a really long time, and you're just further and further away from understanding it, and it's not working out for you, do everything that you can to find, because it just might be meditation, or it could be another modality, it could be RTT, it could be whatever, but don't stop looking for a solution to the problem. Don't think that just because you haven't found it already doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, because I've done all the new age stuff over the last, since 2010, since I got involved in doing massage therapy. And it took me 10 years to find the thing, 12 years to find the thing that changed my life. Hi
folks, welcome to Finding Fuscata. I'm Sean. A couple days ago I had a conversation with Regina Roberti. If you're not familiar with her, well, in a couple minutes you won't be able to say that anymore, because you're going to watch the episode, hopefully watch the whole thing, right? Regina she's a health coach, she's a sleep coach, she is a hypnotist. In fact, she's got a lot of different qualifications. I'm just going to read this directly from her website. It's great. So Regina is a certified health coach, life transformation coach, and licensed trainer in advanced conversational hypnosis, ACH. She is a certified hypnotist through the Marissa Peer School of Rapid Transformational Therapy, or RTT, and a certified self-sabotage coach. That doesn't mean she teaches you how to self-sabotage. She teaches you how to stop self-sabotage, which is something that I could use in my own life. Regina specializes in helping people who have been struggling to sleep for years get restful, energizing sleep, again in 30 days or less, as well as assist her clients in achieving their personal health and wellness goals by utilizing her clients' intrinsic motivation in making healthier lifestyle choices. During the conversation, she pointed out to me, I eat pretty clean most of the time, but we were talking about coffee, and she pointed out some great alternatives to coffee. And she is just a wealth of wisdom and knowledge and caring and experience. And curiously, she also has some upcoming events. If you go to her website, it's lifetransformationsolutions.com, all one word, lifetransformationsolutions.com. She has an upcoming event for a 2-day masterclass to learn advanced conversational hypnosis. Pretty cool. What you'll get from that is speed up client results, see real therapeutic breakthroughs, throw away all prep scripts and homework, and solve multiple problems in one session. And I think the throwing away all prep scripts and homework is for the client, like you as the coach or the hypnotist or the person doing this, especially if you have some kind of life coaching program, or if you're a therapist of some sort. This is a great skill to be able to pick up. So it's June the 21st and 22nd, 2024. So if you're listening to this after that, still go check out her website. She's got awesome stuff. I'm sure she's got more events coming up. But on those days, it's the 21st and 22nd from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern time on Zoom. So that's like hours of intensive information. But you're going to get future access to all ACH masterclasses, no extra charge. So there's a one-time investment for you to get into this program. And then once you're in the program, and you get access to everything going forward, which is amazing. You're going to learn the principles of ACH. There's demonstrations, there's demonstration breakdowns, a whole community of support, which when you're doing things like this, when you're doing coaching programs, when you're learning stuff, it's so important to have that community of support. So I highly encourage that and a whole lot more. So I think that you're going to enjoy this conversation. And yeah, I guess well, I keep always wanting to say I'll see you, but I won't. You'll see me in a couple minutes. Bye. Let's lead off with this. Why Marissa Peer? What drew you to Marissa Peer?
So, as I mentioned earlier, I've been a massage therapist since 2010, and I noticed the mind-body connection.
What do you mean by that?
So I would have my massage clients come in and see me like every week. I had a very good clientele up until from like 2018, 19 into 20. And, that's a little bit further into the story, but I was working on these people and they kept coming back for the same ache, the same pain over and over again. And so what we're taught in massage therapy is like repetitive postures, right? Like working at the same type of job your entire life. If you sit at a desk or if you like lifting heavy things, like of course there's going to be these physical body problems, right? But that wasn't the same for everybody. I kept asking my clients, like, do you stand or do you sit? They do both, right? So it's like, why do they have the same problem right here, like right here in their neck? What is that about? And so when they, being a massage therapist, kind of like being a psychologist, because everybody tells you their problems while you're working on them, because it's a safe space. It's a vulnerable place. Like you're laying naked on a table underneath a sheet. That's the only thing that's separating you from them, right? And so it becomes a talk session a lot of the times where they're venting about what's going on in their life. And I just started to think to myself, like, this has to be a lot to do with why they have their physical issues. It just became more clear to me that there was this mind connection to the physical pain and the constant reemerging physiological response they were having to the stress or whatever story they were telling themselves over and over again, right? Because when we tell ourselves a story over and over again, it becomes our reality. So in 2019, I was just like at the end of the year in October, I was having like really bad postpartum for over 4 years. Like I had my 2 kids, I breastfed for 4.5 years, I co-slept for 6 years. So by the time 2019 rolled around, I was like at the end of my rope. I was like, why can't I fix myself, right? Like, why can't I be a better parent? Why can't, I was like beating myself up. And
what, do you mean because the postpartum wasn't clearing up? Or
yeah, it was just like the depression was there and it wasn't going anywhere.
Help me see if I'm understanding this right. So you're saying that what I'm hearing you say is that so after you had your kids, you had 2 kids, you did the breastfeeding and the nurturing and the co-sleeping and all that other kind of stuff. And were you thinking that doing those sorts of things and taking on those mothering styles would help with the postpartum depression? And then you were surprised that it wasn't going away? No, I felt like they were the cause.
I felt like it was the cause because, backstory fast. I'm one of 9 kids. It was a very aggressive, abusive, chaotic, crazy household growing up. And I told myself at a very young age when I was like a early teenager, I was like, I'm never having kids. I'm never getting pregnant. I'm never getting married. I saw the dysfunction in my household and I wanted to stay as far away from that as possible because my connection to marriage and having children was a very unhappy one. Like you're unhappy if you're married and have kids. How could that possibly be true? But that was my way of protecting myself from basically having another experience like that in my own home. And I kept saying, like, I don't want to mess up my own kids, right? Yeah. I come from a very terrible place.
Yeah. Was your childhood home, was it religious or was it just a lot of kids? I asked that because I grew up, like I said earlier, I grew up in a fundamentalist Christian home.
Yeah.
And 9 kids in the family, that's pretty normal. There's 12.
My father's Italian. And he prays to God, but he never went to church. Like we never really did church. I know some of us have made our first communion, but we never really went past that. We were baptized and we had first communion. But my parents weren't like religiously practicing. And there was a lot of alcohol. There was a lot of behind the scenes stuff that I didn't know until after I had grown up and kind of started to have my own life. More conversations, honest conversations happening between me and my mother about her relationship with my dad. And, you know, there was a lot of vindictiveness between my father, putting some of us in the middle of the separation because they were together 27 years. They didn't really separate until after I was in 8th grade. So I was like around 14. And that was around the time where my sister got pregnant with her first kid, and she was 20 or 21. And I went to some Mama's classes with her. So between seeing that, like the whole birth experience on videos in that room, and like knowing what I knew from my own life experience with my parents and all that stuff, I was like, this is not for me. Right. But I started later on saying like, I'll have kids when I'm like 30. If I want to have kids, like it won't be until I'm 30. If I want to get married, it won't be until I'm 30. And then all of a sudden I go to massage school and I meet the person I'm with now. And 6 months into our relationship, I have this third eye vision of 2 children. And I go, oh crap, here it comes, you know? And it didn't happen until like about 4.5 years later when I found out I was pregnant with my first son. But you know how you were talking earlier before you press the record button, the great awakening, right? Your great awakening. I had my dark night of the soul. I was not an excited new pregnant mom. Every time somebody would ask me like, oh, can you wait until you have your baby? I'm like, he could stay in there as long as he wants. Like, I am not ready for this experience. And a year later, I found out I was pregnant again, and I was so scared. I was mortified that I was having another kid, even though I knew that it was coming. I just was like, I was so scared. And within
why were you scared?
My first son was a Velcro baby.
He was what?
A Velcro baby. He would not let me put him down. I showered with him. I went to the bathroom with him. I brushed my teeth with him on top of me. He slept on my chest every single night. He was that baby. And we have this amazingly close bond. And I don't regret any of the choices that I've made around mothering. But because of how fussy he was, I was like, if I get another baby like this, I'm literally going to go insane. He had me awake every single hour and a half every night for that entire year. And then my second son, he was better. He didn't need to be on top of me, actually pushed away from me at night, and he slept in a bassinet. So that was nice. Like I could put him in a swing. I could put him down. But he also was up every 1.5 hours to 2 hours. So between the two of them, I was up for 4 years every single night. And so I literally was going insane. But that was my fear, and it had come to truth, right? Because it was something that I was so worried about that I manifested that experience. And my kids are fantastic. Like, I love them to death. They're so smart and talented. But I did not have a good first couple of years of like that experience. And it was hard. So I went through the postpartum depression because we were here in Florida. Every one of our family members were at least 3 hours or away or in New York. We didn't have the support system. And so in 2019, I found out about this nutraceutical company. I placed an order for it. I was working, so I could afford it.
You found about what company?
Nutraceutical company called LifeVantage.
What is nutraceutical?
So nutraceuticals work at the cellular level, right? Like instead of taking just like an everyday supplement and you're getting something from it, these activate your cells to do specific function, right? So their main product, which has been around since 2004, is called Protandim. And it has 5 herbs in it, and it has been laboratory made into this very specific blend, synergistic blend of herbs that activate your antioxidant making abilities in the NRF2 pathway of the cell. So within a week of taking it, I popped out of like brain fog, mood funk. My energy levels were great. And so I was like, ooh, there's light at the end of the tunnel. I just got out of this weird place in a very short period of time. And because I knew, somehow, because of how I found out about it through this woman on social media, I ended up following her on Facebook, and all the stuff that she was promoting, as far as like health related stuff, I started to like become interested in it. I started to sell the products, and I was really excited about being a part of the brand. But it was an MLM. It is an MLM company, because
Okay.
they need it's a patented product, and they need the information out there in a certain way as far as like education goes. So I was like, my background's alternative medicine. Like I could, and then I have the massage therapy right behind that. And so I just started kind of following her path, and she led me to this guy named Jason Christoff, who's this self-sabotage coach in Canada, who has built this education system for people who are trying to get out of their own way in life. And then when
Can you stop there for a second? What was this guy's name? Jason?
Jason Christoff.
And he's a self-sabotage coach. I saw that on your website. I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah. So I took his course.
Okay.
And he was using Marissa Peer recordings from Mind Valley to solidify the results of people quitting something like alcohol or cigarettes or coffee, caffeine, period. And so I got interested in Marissa Peer. So that's just like you, went on Mind Valley. I got a membership. I joined her 21-day program. There was another program that I joined, and I thought, wow, this is really cool. But then COVID happened, and all of my clientele went away. I literally kept like 2 people.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was like, well, what am I going to do?
Your massage therapy clientele?
Nobody wanted to be touched. Everybody was afraid that you were a disease and that you were going to kill them. So there was no way that I could move through the next couple of years in the same field. And I thought, are people ever going to want to be touched again? Because the fear was so great. So then I just moved into Marissa Peer. I was like, she's got an online program, and I can become a hypnotist.
Do you think that that period that we went through, people talk a lot about how it affected the children, and now there's things coming out about how the vaccines got pushed through too fast and there were problems with them, which a lot of us kind of knew the whole time, but we weren't really allowed to talk about it very much. But I was very fortunate during that period, because I had just, when everything first kicked off, I had gotten laid off. But as it happened, I'd already been looking for another job anyway. And I had been recently hired by civil service, by federal service. And they hired me like 2 or 3 days before they shut everything down. So I was on payroll, but the place where I worked, Fort Dix here in New Jersey, was completely shut down. I couldn't go get an ID card. I couldn't get computer credentials. I couldn't do anything, but I was on payroll. So I ended up spending 3 months on payroll, but then just like at home.
Wow.
And just, I just did like gardening, and I spent time with my daughter and my wife.
Couldn't have gone any better.
Yeah, it was amazing. I was just like, all right, I guess I'm taking a 90-day vacation. And my new boss, he'd just call me once a week, and he'd say, hey, sorry, this is happening. I got this paper. I need you to research it and just give me like an opinion on it. Or like, here's a certification I'd like you to try to get, So I literally worked 3 or 4 hours a week, and, just kind of like on my own pace. But then the rest of my time was just with my daughter, my wife. It was amazing. But I've often wondered, especially with your experience with people and human touch and the mind-body connection, do you think that there are going to be more longer-term ramifications from that period than we've anticipated? Like, I'm sure it's going to affect kids because of the education, but people experience that kind of loneliness, and I'm not sure. I'm curious to see how that's going to unfold, and I wonder if you have any thoughts on that.
I kind of feel like the first thing that came to mind was that we're resilient, right?
Mm,
We're resilient beings. And I think when we try to assume that things are going to be a certain way for somebody based on that experience, we can get in trouble. And the reason why I say that is because based on what I do, working with the subconscious mind, I know that you have to be really careful about the beliefs that we make based on our circumstances and experiences. Because the
mm,
more we tell ourselves something, the more likely that becomes our story and it becomes our
mm,
reality.
mm,
So, in my own household, my kids have always been homeschooled. We never went to school. Was it hard to not go to parks because they were all roped off? Yes, but we had a backyard. So I went to
mm.
Walmart and I got, sprinklers and baby pools. And,
Yeah.
I used to just take walks with them back and forth to the beach because fortunately I lived 3/4 of a mile from the beach. So we would just
Mm,
walk around our neighborhood and we would play in our backyard. And we would be inside. And because I always wanted to like homeschool my kids since I found out I was pregnant with them, if we were inside, it was all about, okay, what can we learn today? What what
mm.
what program can I put on so that they can, learn something and we can make it fun. Um, and in the midst of all the depression, I was still trying to do what was
Yeah.
right for the kids.
Yeah.
But I still like there are people that have come back to me that wanted massage after a year or so. And there are people that I used to work on all the time, and you can see that they're still afraid of being in close proximity with people. So there
Mm,
definitely is a psychological long term, repercussion of what we went through. But it's a case by case basis. It's a very
yeah.
personalized experience. How have you let the fears of the scenario take over and control your life experience going forward? It's a very individualized thought process. And,
Mm.
what do you call them? It's just a perspective that not everybody agrees with, but a lot of people have. So,
Trauma conditioning.
yeah, for sure. I mean, think about the Holocaust or any of like those other types of really traumatic events that happened in history and how that affected somebody, at the
For
subconscious
generations.
level. But
Yeah.
also, yeah, how did it impact their DNA and how did they transfer that to the next person? Because that is an energetic imprint, right? That belief. The kids grow and start to think like they see their parents think that way and it becomes learned behavior. So now they
Yeah.
have acquired that belief and now they pass it on to their children. And so eventually there might be, somebody like me in the family who is the black sheep, right? Who does not agree or subscribe to, traditional thinking,
Yeah.
which is why I'm probably in the business that I'm in,
Hmm.
because I
Yeah.
do
Same.
believe that we can change those things if we are willing to push past our fears and actually do the work.
One of the things that I came up against going through my own, I went through a different coaching program. Are you familiar with Quasi Johir? He's a
No, I've never
YouTuber.
heard of it.
He's a YouTuber, and he has a coaching program called the Reality Creator Academy.
Interesting.
And there's like two different tiers of his coaching program. One is the premium one called the Reality Mastery, and then the one for the rest of us on regular budgets, it's the Reality Creator Academy. And in there, he pulls a lot from, oh, the name of it slips my mind. But basically, his YouTube presence is he unpacks things from the Kabbalion and Masonic beliefs and Neville Goddard and like that whole realm of people, and talks about how you can apply what we call the law of attraction and manifestation, but in practical terms. But then talks about he was an engineer, mechanical engineer. So he takes all these ideas, but then analyzes them and says, okay, well, this is how you actually apply this, and this is how this actually works. It's a fascinating program, but
it sounds it.
with some very specific meditation practices that he puts in, and I got a lot out of that program. But probably the biggest thing was finding my limiting beliefs. So I had like Marissa Peer talks about, I think, you have like all these different limiting beliefs stacked up. But her biggest thing is that like I'm not worthy. You have to keep telling yourself I'm worthy, I'm worthy, I'm worthy.
Yeah, like the three things every session comes down to. What we learned was I'm different, that's not available to me, and I'm not enough.
Yeah, yeah, and it was weird. Like the thing that I came down to was. And I know this is not typical. I don't know if my brain is weird or I know it's not true. I know that my brain is weird, but I have very, very early childhood memories that I probably shouldn't have. Because I remember being an infant, and I remember learning how to walk. I remember things that happened before I was 3 years old.
Wow.
And a lot of people say that that part of the brain doesn't
unusual
develop until like 5 or so, but I mean, I remember being placed in a crib, and thinking how kind of strange that was, and being frustrated that I couldn't talk. And those are my memories. But my earliest childhood memory, though, is I was at the time I didn't know, but I've looked back and I know the event now because I've seen family photos and I've heard stories from it. But I was an infant. I was crawling around in the grass, and my aunt was there, and my mom was there, and my older sister, my older cousin Jeffrey, and my older cousin Stephanie, and they were like just learning how to walk, and I was still crawling. And I remember that I was pulling up grass and shoving it in my mouth because it was an interesting texture. It tasted terrible. It was weird and woody, but and I remember pulling it out. I was like all slobbery and gross, And my aunt said, "Oh, no, Sean," and like pulled it all out of my mouth. And I was mad that she pulled it out of her mouth, and I started crying.
Like, why did you take that experience?
Yeah, I was having fun. Like I wasn't. It was. It was.
It
gross.
tasted disgusting, but I was enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that you took it out, but I'm also angry that you took it out. It was a very complicated emotion. But then, so I started crying though. And I went to go crawl into my mother's lap, and she said, "No, Sean," because my sister was in her lap. And then I got mad, and I tried to go crawl into my aunt's lap, and she said, "No, Sean," because my two cousins were in her lap. So I ended up just sitting in the grass, and I stopped crying. But in that moment, I formed this picture of the world. This became my paradigm. And in story after story through my whole life, and I came to this by doing Marissa's work and Quasi's work, is the narrative of my life is that thing that I want is right there. I can see it. It's accessible to other people, but it's specifically denied to me.
Yeah.
And I can't, and no matter what I do, I can try to go this way, try to go that way. I'm gonna be pulled back. And I can see that playing back throughout, every single aspect of my life, my education, my military career, my relationships, my sex life, my meditation work, like every business I've tried to, it was always like, it's always that pattern. Right. And the thing that I've realized recently, and this is kind of what I think that you're alluding to, is that or kind of what we were hitting on earlier, is that when you have a traumatic experience, well, let me add one more thing to that too, is that one of the things I've practiced in my parenting, because I've got 5 kids, and ages 7 through 32, and I have very complicated relationships with all of them. So, but yeah, that face, that's the right face to make.
Yeah. Wow. 32. You have a 32-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. I'm 51.
Wow.
So
okay.
I was 19 when
Wow.
Ari was born. Yeah, she
Okay.
just so I know how old I am because of I know how old she is. So
Okay.
so she just turned 32, which means I'll be 52 in December.
That's awesome.
Um, and I have a lot of really complicated relationships with all those kids because I was in the military for 23 years, and
You're come and
divorced
gone.
and deployments, and
Yeah.
it was crazy. But one of the things that I've always practiced, and I practice this with my children and with people that I supervise or work with or whatever, is that you always have to remember that whatever somebody is going through might be the most challenging thing that they've ever gone through, even though it seems easy to you.
Right.
So when your son is learning how to walk, to you it's easy because you just get up and walk places, but like that little brain hasn't knitted together how to walk yet. So the challenges that you're facing, and you're like, we'll use you for example, is like the challenges that you're facing of overcoming your postpartum depression are just as challenging to you as it is for him learning how to walk. It's the
Right.
same level of challenge, right?
Same level of frustration. Yeah.
Same level of frustration.
Like
Like
I
it's
should
just
know
like,
how to do this. It should just
yeah, why
happen,
can't
you
I? This
know?
is making me crazy. I should be able to get through this. I can
Yeah.
do everything else. Why can't I master this one stupid thing, right?
Yeah.
And so, having said all that, when I look back at myself as an infant, I realized that challenging moment, because now I'd be like, get bent, but go find something else to do, right? But I
Yeah.
wanted my mom or my aunt. I wanted them, but I couldn't have it. So that level of challenge was the same then as what it is that I'm trying to face now.
Yeah.
You kind of see what I mean?
Yeah. You're
But
connecting
then,
dots.
yeah. So the other thing I had to come to understand was that event, even though it seems like nothing, was deeply traumatic
Right.
to 8 month
You
old
could be
Sean.
the most perfect parent in the world,
Right.
and you do not know how your kid is going to interpret anything you say
For decades.
for decades. And
Right.
it's interesting because I have a client who's in his 60s. I started working on him when he was 60, and I still work on him to date. And like he just started to unlearn things, right? Like
Mm.
it can take that long. And it's
Yeah.
unfortunate that it does, but with the right people, that you're exposed to, like those, it's the time, right? All right,
Yeah.
here we go. Here's the unlearning process. It's starting now.
Do you think that uh, as I get deeper into this world, so like I said, I kind of started my spiritual awakening process in 2006. I remember very clearly.
Hmm.
I got. Do you know? I'm sure you know her. Marianne Williamson.
Never heard of her. What is she?
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Oh wow. So Marianne, you would love Marianne Williamson. In fact, I may have just changed your life right now.
I'll write it down.
Yeah, yeah. You need Marianne in your life for sure.
Okay.
She is a spiritual teacher, and she teaches primarily from this book here. It's called A Course in Miracles.
Oh, okay. I know. I've heard of.
Yeah.
I heard of her. A Course in
Okay.
Miracles.
A Course in Miracles. But she's got a number of books out that she read. She was one of the early pioneers in the self-improvement, movement.
Yeah, she's right up there with like
She ran for
Louise
president.
Hayes and yeah.
She ran for president twice.
Is she? I
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah, she was on the during the last election. She made it on stage during the first big Democratic debate,
Wow.
and yeah, she whenever she speaks, she kind of brings tears to my eyes because she speaks. See, she speaks the truth.
Yeah.
She's kind of like, for my generation, she's kind of like the mom I always wished I had, who was just like, she's a very, what do I say? I see a new movement that's rising in Western culture where women And I think this is partly exemplified by the life choices that you've made also. I see a movement where women are starting to realize that the version of feminism that they were sold when they were younger isn't true femininity, and that
It's
the so my
victimy.
what's what
It's victimy. It's
it's
like a victim
it's
mindset.
victimy, yeah. And the cliche thing that I've heard is that, like, my mom's generation was told that if you want to be if you want to be free and be free from the patriarchy, then you need to be a tyrant like your father is and fuck like your brothers do. And that's how you step into your full womanhood. And that was
Whoa.
part of the message that they got, right?
Whoa.
And that causes some major cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing a lot more women now, especially in the upcoming generations, who are just looking around at the world and saying, that sounds like bullshit to me.
I want to be a part of this.
Yeah, I don't. That's not what I want. And it was actually, but Marianne is one of the ones who has been kind of steadfast throughout her career of being a very, very successful businesswoman, a very successful mother, a very successful spiritual teacher. But then always, through everything that she's done, she's maintained her connection to the sacred feminine. And that's why, I look at her as kind of like, my spiritual mom. Like that's something that we could exemplify. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in fact, it was something that she said that I'm still trying to unpack this. She said that part of the role of the woman is to be the garden of the sacred erotic. And I think that, and as you change your levels of consciousness, you can see that in different ways, like, when I was a younger man and I thought I heard that, I was like, oh, it's just like sex and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then the more my consciousness expands and the more, the deeper I get into my relationship with my wife, and, my daughter became a woman and my youngest daughter is getting older, and you see how things are kind of unfolding. Oops. I'm coming to see that more, that it's that sacred feminine energy that creates an encompassing and like an enclosing place for things to grow, like a womb,
Yeah.
and that's what that is. It's that the sacred erotic flame is the thing that entices the non-real to become the real.
Yeah.
And we as humans and biological creatures, we do that through sexual practices, but that sacred erotic it's that power that draws out,
Yeah.
that entices that out. Anyway,
Yeah.
but
Totally get it.
I'm starting to see that movement among women now, that they're starting to see that a lot of this has just been a lie and it doesn't work, and we don't need women in. I mean, if women want to go be in the corporate office, then great. We need to have as much of what's the word I'm looking for? Not ecumenical, egalitarian society. Where everybody has equal opportunity to whatever
Everyone
it
has a
is.
place, right?
Everybody has a place, and you have an opportunity to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, whatever that is for you, right?
Right.
But then telling women that you have to go be a CEO and wear a pantsuit every day, maybe that's not the best path for everybody. We should stop shoving that down people's throats and let them just go live their best life and encourage that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of politics around the equality, right? Man versus woman.
Mm.
And I think, some of us get too deep into the belief systems that we have to be just like men, and therefore we need to have those positions to prove that we are equal, in that sense that we could be successful and that we can, do everything that a man can do, and we deserve a seat, at the top where they are. And I think there's there's so many discussions that you can have around the feminine versus the masculine, right? And so many different angles to come in. But I think ultimately, it's what are you creating by being in that position, right? So if there's that level of creation that the feminine has, that, you know, brings that, they bring that to the table, right? The incubation period of having an idea come to bloom. You know, by being in that position, what is it that you're creating within that, you know, dynamic, that position at the top of a company? What can you bring to the table that makes that better, and who is it making it better for, right? So I think, you know, if you just talk in terms of energy and creation, like, it's not about the position, really. It's about what your intention is and how can you foster that growth in that position.
I heard a scary story a couple days ago. I have not confirmed if this is true or not. I kind of don't want to know if it's true. But there was a, well, it's a twofold idea that kind of scares me. Who's that? The lady, Nikki Haley. She's running for president right now.
Oh, yeah.
And
Okay.
about a year or so ago, Don Lemon, who has since been removed from his position, said something about, because Nikki's like late 40s, early 50s, something like that, right? And Don Lemon said that she didn't really have a chance to become president because women hit their prime when they're like 25. And, you know, he was talking to a couple other women and they were like, slow your roll, bro. Right? But
what a statement.
Yeah. But my observation is that women tend to hit their prime when they're
in their 40s.
Late 40s, early 50s, you know? Like, if you come across a woman who's like late 50s, early 60s, like, that's a force of nature to be reckoned with, you know, because she's done with all
the bullshit.
Husband, like, her kids are grown and gone, like, menopause is done, like,
she don't care about anything in life at this point, right? Like, nothing can touch her. She's done it all. She's dealt with it all.
Yeah, and she's probably accumulated some wealth.
She's the strongest, most confident, most, you know, knows herself at that moment. Right. She's completely embodying all of her abilities and capabilities. She's gone through the, you know, all of the trenches.
So the scary part is, because I mean, the reality, like, if I was sitting in Don Lemon's chair and I could re-say those words, I'd say Nikki's still a little bit too young because she hasn't come into her prime yet. You know, like, if she wants to run for president,
give her a couple of years.
Yeah, when she's like 60 and has a little more gray in her head, you know, then that'll be somebody to talk to. You know, like Tulsi Gabbard, I think when she gets into her 50s and 60s, I think that's going to be a force of nature that we're all going to have to deal with.
Maybe. Yeah.
But, and you know,
I think, you know, rather than worry about the years, right, I think it's more about like learning who you are, right, at your deepest level. And I mean, hey, if you can run for president as a woman in your 40s, late 40s, and get the position, then great. But how much self-work have you done, and what place are you coming from when it comes to running a country and being such a force of, you know, power, and that, you know, would affect the entire world, right? Like, your position has to do with every single country on the planet, right? Like, your position is one of the most important positions that anybody could possibly have. So what can you bring to the table there, and what place are you, I guess, I don't want to say ruling from, but like, as a president, like, you're running a country.
Well, governing from, or
governing from.
Yeah.
Like, are you governing from that feminist place, that, you know, that tainted, skewed feminism place, or are you going to govern from a place of like wisdom, right? How much do you know? How much have you lived? How much have you found out who you are in the process of living, right? Which even the 60-year-olds, obviously, based on our conversation, like, even they are not necessarily fully evolved and have not
Yeah.
fully done the work. And maybe they're just being started now, right? They're not as lucky as, let's say, like I'm 41, it's 24. So for the last 8 years, I've been doing a lot of self work, like an unbelievable amount of self work. And this for you has started when you in 2006, right? Like that was the year
Yeah.
that you really started to look a little bit more inwardly and go, what the hell's going on here?
I'm looking up this story because before I say this out loud, what's the word? I'm gonna look this up later. But the thing that scared me is that I want to say it was in Japan. There was a movement where they were encouraging older women to what's the word? Voluntary suicide.
Oh,
Basically saying, yeah, if you're past your childbearing years, then you're now just a draw on society.
the
And maybe you should,
depopulation movement.
yeah, it's part of the whole depopulation movement, I think. And the story, I'll have to research that a little bit more because if that's true, that's horrifying.
Well,
But
we know what the history around women in China has been as far as like male babies versus female babies. So I don't want to say I could believe it just be based on that, you know.
yeah, that's oof. But I worry sometimes too. So actually, to kind of circle back to the beginning of the conversation, where in my own spiritual journey, I've kind of gone from being, dude, I'm telling you, in 2009 was my dark night of the soul. It was a nightmare of a year. I went from, at the beginning of 2009, in like February 2009, my hardest question in life was, is the King James version of the Bible the best translation, or maybe is it the New International Version? And which one is more pleasing to God? Like I was really, really concerned about that. And I had a wife, and I had 4 kids. I had and living with me in a nice, suburban cul-de-sac with like the minivan and a little sedan, and I had a golden retriever and a German Shepherd, and
American
just like
dream.
everything was fine. I had a good Air Force career. Everything was going great. And that was February. I was living in Alaska. So it was like February in 2009. In February of 2010, I had no dogs, no wife, no kids. I mean, everybody was still alive except for the dogs. I don't know.
But you
And I
were
was living,
disconnected.
yeah, and I was living in a little tiny crappy efficiency apartment in New Jersey. And all I had in the world was a bag of military clothes, a bag of civilian clothes, a bicycle, a minivan, and an air mattress. And everything else, everything else was gone,
Wow.
including my Christianity, my religion, my complete paradigm worldview was just, everything was completely shattered. And
Ground zero.
yeah, yeah. And I remember like that Christmas of 2010 was probably like the loneliest. Well, that week, the Christmas week of 2010 was the loneliest period I had ever experienced in my life, because hi folks, Sean here. Excuse the interruption. I want to ask a favor of you if I can. I know you don't owe me anything, but hear me out. Finding Foscata has been a dream of mine for a long time. And for many, many years, when I was in the military and even as a civilian, I struggled with a lot of limiting beliefs that held me back from doing the things that I knew that I was supposed to be doing. And when I overcame those limiting beliefs, I was able to start flourishing and growing, and I'm branching out into new areas, and my life is really, really changing. And what I want to do with Finding Foscata is to take those lessons that I've learned and share them with you so that you can do this too, because it's an amazing world out there once you get past some of these limiting beliefs and once you understand your true capabilities in life. But to do that, I need your support. So if you would, consider like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow along, hit the bell for notifications, and definitely get involved in the discussions in the comments. And I would also encourage you to go take a look at school.com. That's SKOOL.com / finding Fuscata. There's a finding dash Fuscata. And there I'm building a community of people who have been on a journey of spiritual awakening, or they're recovering from religion, or they are just generally seeking truth, or they're frustrated with, they're trying to learn manifestation practices, but things just aren't working. And they've been to coach after coach after coach, and stuff just isn't happening. Because that's the journey that I went on. So what we're doing over there is we're having very deep conversations about how these things work and what it's all about. And it's a great community that I would encourage you to join. I'm only asking $1 a month right now, and that's mostly to keep out the riffraff and to make sure that you're not bought. But if you object to that, or if you can't for whatever reason, then by all means reach out to me and I can get you into the program anyway. Because the point isn't to make a cajillion dollars. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to get this message out to people, to help people's lives improve and to help them move on to the next level the way that I did. So if you're interested in that, if you'd like to join me on this journey, I welcome you, and I thank you for your support. Thank you for the time. Now, let's get back to the conversation. Yeah, I was on standby that week, so I couldn't go anywhere, and everybody else in the squadron left. So it was just like me, and like my family couldn't come and see me because they had other obligations. So I spent that week, because my birthday's on December 22nd. That whole week I just spent completely alone. Yeah. Just like wandering in the woods of New Jersey. Like, how did my life get here?
Yeah.
But it went from that, and then of course, being angry at God and all that kind of stuff. But then coming back around full circle to sort of understanding what Christianity is really all about, and sort of understanding how these pieces come together. But through that journey too, and even that was one of those patterns of where that limiting belief of mine had been kind of manifested out into my world. Like everybody else there got to go home for Christmas, but I was stuck being alone. So, but let's get back. I want to get back to Marissa Peer and the conversational hypnosis. Tell me how do you think that applies in all of this and all these conversations? And maybe even you talked about, you had the coach who did the self-sabotage coaching. Mm-hmm. How does that kind of stuff all tie together, do you think?
For me, it was a way to address the issues, because I couldn't figure out from a conscious level, like, why everything was the way it was. I couldn't figure out why I had this amazing partner that I still have, why I have these amazing kids, but I'm unhappy. Why am I sitting here taking all of this for granted? And I consciously knew, like, my life is not my parents' life. I knew that my environment that I was creating was not the one that I grew up in. But I couldn't help but be stuck in that place of, I'm still perpetuating the same behaviors and feelings and whatever that I had previously. So the self-sabotage coaching gave me an inside view to like how the mind works. It was like the baseline of like what we do and why we do it, and how we get stuck in certain cycles and patterns of behaviors and thinking. When I got into RPT, I was so excited when I signed up for the program after I had my interview with the lady to join the program, because she was like, well, why do you want to do this? Like, we want to make sure that you're here for the right reasons. And I was like, because I just want to help people. Like, I want to help myself, but I also want to help people. And I feel like this is the best way for me to do it. So learning the whole rapid transformational therapy gave me a deeper understanding of why things, where things come from and why they are the way that they are. For instance, your story about being an infant crawling around in the grass, like that first belief that you made just then and there in that simple, very fast scenario, which paved the way for the way you think the rest of your life, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, the RTT helped me to go back to like very core memories of, and have that understanding and clarity around why I was the way I was and why I thought the things that I thought. Mm. But I needed to change that thinking. The clarity was great. The understanding was great. But now how do I change that? And the advanced conversational hypnosis, or ACH, which makes it easier to say, ACH came along, and it was truly root cause work, source cause work, where it wasn't just about knowing, it was about changing the meaning behind what I knew now, right? Like, but not only just knowing, it was about taking what I do know now and like creating a new meaning around it, eliminating old beliefs that no longer serve me. And now I can take that old resource that's no longer benefiting me, just the knowing, right? And I can actually throw it away, and I can say, well, this doesn't matter anymore, and this doesn't, help me anymore here, now, in the now. And now what new resources can I grab onto or create or manifest that would help propel me forward? And how are those resources going to benefit me, not just with this problem, but with all of these other issues that are connected? And so they tied in beautifully. One thing, self-sabotage, into RTT, into ACH. They tied in beautifully to help me have this more well-rounded understanding of how the mind works and how to get to the root cause. And in learning all of those things and learning how to change those beliefs and shift them, right? The mindset shift that we needed to actually no longer participate in that cyclical behavior became the goal, right? How can I do this, and how can I do it quickly? So over the last year and a half, I've taken everything that I've known, that I've learned in these three modalities, and been able to apply it to my own personal growth. So how they've helped me personally is I have this friend who's a colleague of mine in ACH in Arizona, and every 3 to 4 weeks, we would give each other a session. Okay, so what are we working on now? All right, like, we're both fucked up. We need help. I trust you, you trust me. We've been able to be vulnerable enough with each other, and like, this works for us. So I'm going to help you get rid of all these issues, and you're going to help me work through mine. And so every 3 weeks, what do you want to work on today? How are you doing? How's processing going? Do you need more time? Okay, I need a session. This is what's bothering me this week. This is what's coming up. And like, we've kind of paused for the last 6 months. I think we saw each other once in that time frame. But the way that we feel about our lives.
What's your friend's name?
Her name's Nicole.
Okay. I have a friend. I think she's. No, I'm confusing stories. I know another lady who. She is a hypnotist, but yeah, she's not in Arizona. I was anyway. Sorry. For a second, I was like, I wonder if it's.
I wonder if I know her. No, she's amazing. Like, she is such a great practitioner for ACH, and she helped me get to a place where I was like, I'm no longer willing to keep telling myself the same story over and over again that's getting me the same results. And I was finally able to say to her, I've been lying throughout every session. I have not been truthful because I'm so fearful of like actually being that honest, that like raw and honest to myself about where I am and what I'm afraid of going forward. Like, I'm afraid of all these things. And that, for me, I had a major breakthrough within myself that I've been looking for the last 4 years. And this actually happened in December.
This is for doing the ACH process?
Yeah, the ACH. Because the RTT, I've had 20 plus sessions. I had clarity, but I never really truly got to the place where like I could shift my mindset and think differently. I was the same negative thinking, cyclical behavior person.
Are you familiar with Dolores Cannon?
Yeah, I love her stuff.
I love. I
Yeah,
wish I could have met her.
Bashar, which is uncanny when it comes to ACH, as far as like the beliefs and the uncovering stuff.
I'm skeptical of Bashar.
I'm not.
I don't know why. I don't know what it
Yeah,
is
yeah.
because
It almost
I've
feels like he's faking, right?
it does. Like I've gotten a lot from Abraham Hicks.
You love it.
Um,
Yes, a lot of
yeah.
law of attraction.
Oh my
Louise
gosh, that's
Hayes,
like
her, Dolores Cannon. Bashar is in my. He's new in my.
okay.
He's new in my field of vision, but
Are you familiar with
I'm
the
a
law of
good
one?
read. Huh?
Are you familiar with the law of one?
It sounds familiar. Like I've done a
It's in,
lot of work over the years, but I've never
yeah.
really like dove deep into one particular thing, except for
So
ACH. ACH has been my North Star.
okay. Yeah, the law of one is it's a channeled work. This A Course in Miracles, that this
Yes.
is another channeled work where they said they actually channeled Jesus Christ, which
Interesting.
yeah, it's interesting. But the stuff this was a game changer for me. But then the law of one, it's a channeled work from a what do they call it? It's like a collected consciousness entity. So if you can imagine, the way that I picture it is that like a civilization of people and like
Yeah.
all of their
Wasn't that what
collective.
Abraham was?
Abraham, yes, but
His,
it's the same kind of thing. Yeah,
yeah.
it's the same kind of it's
That's
like a
cool.
conglomeration of collected wisdom that is able to speak through one person's voice, if you
That's
will.
awesome. Yeah.
But yeah, but how does ACH tie into like channeled works and all that kind of thing? I don't.
It's a very
I'm
intuitive
not
process for sure.
okay.
You have to connect with what the soul's really saying in a session.
Mm,
So, like when somebody's just talking to me, because we don't do inductions, we don't do suggestibility tests, we don't do all the stuff that I used to do in traditional hypnosis. But through having a conversation, we're taught how to tap into unconscious moments, which are subconscious messages, right? They're
mm,
subconscious pathways to guide us to where the real issue is. Where's
mm,
the root? Where did all of this stem from? And what does it affect? It does it just affect, for
mm,
instance, I'm a sleep specialist. So does it just affect me with the sleep, or does it enmesh in other areas of our life, right? Well, earlier you were saying that one moment of not being able to go to your mother, not being able to go to your aunt, that one belief of it's right there, but it's not available to me, has impacted you in how many different areas of your life going forward. And as you look back, now you can see where all of those things fit, right? Like you're having these, what do we call it?
epiphanies.
Well, yeah, we call it unconscious emerging phenomena, right?
Okay.
So when you finally connect that scene and to all of the things, like I call them popcorn moments, because it's like boom, oh, that's how that's connected, oh,
That's what
that's
it
how
feels
that's
like.
connected, right? It's
Yeah.
the epiphany, right? So the unconscious moments, and that could be anything from the emotion behind the story, or it can be like a physical feeling that somebody gets because they're more in their body than they are in their head,
Mm,
or it could be like the way that they start to trance out, right? Like we're trying to pick up on those things because those are what's leading us to the deepest part of the mind where the answers are, right?
mm-hmm.
Our problems are a resource that we once took on in the moment that we decided to have that resource because it benefited us in some way. Survival, safety is usually the underlying reason why we take on a belief
Mm-hmm.
based on our experiences. So what we're doing in an ACH session is we're connecting all of those dots, right? We're taking all the layers of things that we've told ourselves over the years around that problem, all the guesses that we've made, all of the things that we think created our problem or has to do with our problem, and we're just pushing them away. None of those things actually mean anything. They're all guesses, right? Your best guess of why you have the problem. We want to know the real reason why this problem is there and why it's affecting you in so many different ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
So ACH is this very intuitive process of guiding the client through the darkness to that core belief, right? That where it all started. And that's why once we get them there, they can go, well, this is stupid. Like, I don't even, like, I can see why I created that belief then, but what does that have to do with where I am now? Like, it's night and day. It doesn't even have anything to do with anything. So now I can go, well, I don't want that resource anymore. That resource is not helping me. So now I'm going to get rid of that resource, and I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to try all these new resources. I'm going to try this one, and okay, that one's not working. I'm going to try this one. And in ACH, we call it trying on new suits, right? Which one fits the best? And once we get, like, however long it takes a person to process and try on all those new suits, by the time they're done trying them on, they go, boom, bam, this is the suit. This is the one I look awesome in. I feel awesome in. This is the one that helps me the most, be the most successful. That's the suit that we wear. And everything that touches, me going forward in that suit is going to benefit, right? It's that new resource that creates the change that we need to have the life that we want. So when I listen to Bashar talk, like, a lot of what he says is like the underlying principles of ACH and how it works.
Oh.
Right. So when I listen to him, I'm like, that is such a, advanced conversational hypnosis thing that he says to people. And that's a lot of that is like our underlying belief in ACH of how it works and why it works and what we're going for.
So here's what I'm hearing, because in the world that I've been occupying for a while, there's a lot of talk about law of attraction and manifesting and vibrations and frequencies and all this other kind of stuff, right? And one of it's not a mantra, but it's almost like a slogan that people use in that community is you have to keep your vibration high. You got to keep, like, if you want your life to change, you got to maintain.
What does that even mean? What does that mean?
I don't know, but I don't understand that. But what I'm hearing you say now is, I think the thing that they are trying to communicate, because I understand about, vibrations and levels of consciousness and frequencies and all that kind of stuff, but the way I'm interpreting what you're saying is that when you try on these different suits, if you will, you try on these different modalities, and you say, okay, this is the one that makes me feel good. Like, I feel hot, I feel powerful, I feel good now. That might be what people are trying to express when they say keep your vibration high, is you have to find that, identity that actually aligns with who you truly are. And then when you find that identity, this is interesting. When you find that identity, then you are more able to, and you know what it is, and you know where to find it, and you know the boxes that you have to sift through to get at it, to put that costume on, right? Then that's raising that vibration. That's kind of what I'm hearing you say.
Right. So a lot of the things that Bashar says in his videos is like, act on your highest joy and excitement, right? In every single moment. So if you're sitting here and you're like, I don't want to do this, right? If you suck it up and do that thing, what's going to happen is, you'll get stuff done, but it's not creating any kind of joy in your life, right? What happens when you do the things you enjoy? You're naturally happy, right? You're pleased with yourself. You feel good in your skin, right? Like you're doing things that bring you the feel goods, right?
It's the flow state.
Right. It's a flow state. So what does it mean to bring your frequency up? Like, how can somebody who is human, who has no real idea of what that is, do that just by somebody saying to do that, right?
Yeah, I have not been able to figure that out.
Right. But if you can explain it in terms of, just do things that make you happy. Well, a lot of us will come back and say, but I have all these responsibilities. Like, this has to come first. These are my priorities, right? I can't do all the things I want to do and be happy because, life, right? Well, right there, you're blocking, right? Because somebody's telling you to do something. Somebody's telling you to raise your vibration. Oh, how the fuck do I do that, right? Somebody's telling you to do the things that are more enjoyable to you. Well, how can I do that when I'm taking care of 5 kids, trying to worry about what my wife feels, pay all the bills? Like, you can't just leave your family because that's what's going to make you happy, right? You're not just going to leave and go do those things. So in ACH, it's not about raising the vibration of somebody. It's just like you said, becoming more in alignment with who you really are, right? You made this belief based on a scenario that happened, one 30-second scenario of you eating grass and somebody telling you can't go to your mom and you can't go to your aunt. You made this belief in that moment at 6 months old, right? Like, how could a 6-month-old all of a sudden consciously make that believe or unconsciously believe that everything is always far away from them and they can't attain it even though they can see it? So that is you not being in alignment with yourself. It's not you being in alignment. Everything starts as neutral, right? Every experience that we have starts as neutral. What makes it good or bad? It's the feelings that we attach to it, right? You can have a family of 4, a mom, a dad, and a set of twins. And whatever happened in that environment, you have one twin that perceives it as good, and you have one twin that perceives everything as bad. The one that perceived it as good is going to go off, and whatever they perceived as good or a challenge that they can overcome, they're going to go off and they're going to be successful. And what is the one who perceives it as bad going to do? They're going to take that belief and they're going to put it towards every situation in their life to continue to prove to themselves, right, that unconscious bias, that their belief is true. And then their life's going to go to shit, right? You understand? So in ACH, you believed that you could not go near your parents or your mom and your aunt, but was that really true? Like, going forward, is that belief true about every other experience you ever had, right?
Right, yeah.
No, it's not true. It's just an emotion that you tied to that experience that has created this imbalance and this disalignment, right, for the rest of your experience, which is manifested, right? Manifestation is just us manifesting our most rehearsed beliefs, isn't it?
Yeah.
So somebody who believes that they can have all of the things gets all of the things. Somebody who believes they can't have anything gets nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Because the law of attraction is it's not biased, right? It's like God's not biased, right? You can have all the things you want. You just have to believe that you're worthy of it and that you deserve it and that you can have it, right? But if you constantly tell yourself that's not available to me, if it's never at reach, what's going to happen? Every single scenario is going to be a manifestation of that experience until you go, I'm tired of this shit, right? Until your unconscious syncs up with your conscious and goes, yeah, we're ready for change. Now, how do I get that change? I'm going to go look for something that can help me. So whatever program you've done or whatever book you've read is going to help you find a better resource, right? A better unconscious payoff so that you move towards that. Because all we're ever doing is looking for the thing that benefits us the most and that will keep us alive. So if the not good thing is the thing that keeps us alive, we're going to hold on to that until we see that that's no longer benefiting us, which is the core of ACH. It's why the modality works so great, because we look at the thing that hasn't been benefiting us, although we've held on to it, that resource, for so long. And we go, this is bullshit. Like, we don't need this anymore. Now I'm going to find a better suit. I'm going to find something that actually makes me feel good, because I know that I don't need that thing anymore. Now I have to find the thing that actually is more in alignment with who I am. So it is a very intuitive process in ACH to help somebody have that mindset change that original core belief that is creating havoc in their life. But you want to know what? It did it for a reason. It was there to benefit you. If you look at your life, where has that belief actually benefited you? because 50% of your life will say, it kept me from having all these things. But what has it actually done for you in a positive way? Has it made you work harder, strive for more, right? Dig deeper, right? Eventually come to the conclusion that you need to do the work, right? In order to change the outcome. It's changed you as a person, right?
Oh, 100%.
In a lot of good ways. So that's what we're always looking for with the outcome in ACH.
How do you incorporate shadow work into that? Because as
I did shadow work.
Well, here's the reason I'm asking that question is because one of the reasons why I hold back from doing that work. Are you familiar with Jordan Peterson?
No, Lorna Johnson was like my mentor for shadow work a couple years ago.
Okay.
So,
Well,
but maybe
Jordan
they're
Peterson,
related.
He's a psychologist, a psychotherapist. He's pretty popular
Okay.
on the internet, but he talks a lot about if you want to be a fully, particularly for men, but for anybody really, if you want to be a fully integrated and human being, you have to be dangerous. You have to realize that you're a monster and that you're capable of monstrous things. Like the story that he tells is about. Let's do a fake ad for a real thing. Hi folks, Sean here. Today's episode is in no way or shape or form brought to you by Grant Stone Shoes. Let me ask you something. Do you have feet? I do. And I was in the military for a long time, and I have just about every running injury that somebody can have. And I need to have solid shoes with good ankle support, good arch support, a steel shank. And I also don't want to have to spend a lot of money and then have to throw something away, because shoes that offer that kind of support for me are just generally really expensive. Well, what Wyatt and the good folks over at Grant Stone have done is they figured out a way to take the highest quality leathers and rubbers and threading and all that kind of stuff from around the world and put together a boot that is just superior in quality to almost any other on the market that you're going to find. They offer a full range of sizes and widths in case you've got duck feet like me. They come in up to 3E sizes, which is amazing. And I think you would really, really like these shoes. So if you like shoes, if you have feet, if you care about your feet, consider going to grantstoneshoes.com and pick yourself up a pair. The great thing is that since they're made in China, they can keep the prices down, which is amazing. So the shoes of this quality, if you went to another shoemaker, say like here in the U.S., or things that are made in other places around the world, shoes of this high quality would cost $700-800 even. But these are right now cost like less than $400, which is great. They have Goodyear welt stitching, and they are completely resolable. So if you take care of these, just some very basic maintenance, you can have these shoes for the rest of your life. This might be the last pair of boots I ever bought. I mean, I'm 51, and I could easily get 20, 30 years out of these. Just, change the soles every once in a while. And they're great. So, and check it out. It's much better for the environment. How many pairs of shoes have you gotten that you just you wore them out and you threw them into the landfill? I can't tell you how many shoes I've done with that. But with these, I bought them once. They can be repaired. They can be worn over and over and over again. Different parts in them can be replaced. And, my grandfather wore a pair of boots like this, and he had them for probably about 30 years. And then when he passed away, I think one of my cousins got them patched up, and he kept on wearing them. These will outlast you more than likely, unless you abuse them and are crazy. So anyway, like I said, today's podcast is in no way officially affiliated with Grant Stone Shoes, but I like having little ad bits in my videos. I think it's fun. So there's a fake ad for a real thing. Grant Stone Shoes, because you have feet. in Nazi Germany.
Hmm.
Those people who were there operating the concentration camps, the death camps, were just regular people. But we like to think that we would be Oscar Schindler and we'd be saving the Jews. But odds are that's completely not true. We'd be there, going along with it and maybe even thinking it's a good idea, because there's a part of us and of all of us that we have that monstrous capability within us, that that we can do monstrous things.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, and I've done a lot of work to be able to see that monstrous side of me and say, oh, okay, I know that guy's there, right?
He exists and I accept him, right?
Yeah, he
It doesn't
exists.
mean he has to come out.
Right. I used to be really afraid of him, but now I know that I'm learning how to apply his power judiciously,
Yeah.
So like, but it's still one of the things that I'm still not quite sure, like how to release that, because inside I'm completely Tony Soprano. If anybody messes with anybody that I love, I'm going to do horrifying things to them. And that's just going to be, that's what I'm going to do, So like my daughter, she's 7, she was over at a friend's house the other day, and the little boy was there. They're playing in the pool. He's like her age, and he kept calling her babe and grabbing her butt. And I'm like, when she told me that, I was like, huh, all right. I was trying to be calm and fine. And, I'm like, okay, because I didn't want to traumatize her. But inside, I was like marching to their house, and I was like,
Giving them a piece of your
murdering the
mind.
dad and just like burning the house down.
Oh my God.
Like, because I could feel that rage that came up. I'm like, But instead, I'm like, okay, okay, that's one way to handle things, Sean, but we're not going to do that. That's crazy. But I can channel that energy now and say, okay, well, let's first of all have a rational conversation with my wife and say, what's the monster.
What's the best avenue to address this?
How do I do this without also traumatizing the boy and without traumatizing my daughter and getting myself to jail?
Right.
All that kind of
because they're 7,
Yeah, there's.
So we have to do that.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think that
when you say how do I release that part of me?
Well, but do you even want to?
No.
Yeah, you can't release it.
You are half dark and half light. Like you have to embrace the whole aspect of you. So I did this session with a male client who had so much self-control in frustrating situations, but internally he had this rage, and he was always afraid that if triggered, that would come out, right? He had the self-control, but he also said to me that he couldn't accept that part of him existed, right? And through the session, the fact that he kept saying that, like, he was ashamed of that part of him, that was the deepest, darkest part of himself that he didn't want to share with anybody. Like he made, because I was recording it for like a demo, demo breakdown for ACH, so I could market it. And he asked me to turn the camera off, like stop recording. So in that minute, those like 20 minutes of the video being off and not recording it, he came to terms with like, that part of me exists and I'm okay with it. Like, it's actually not a bad thing, although I've been looking at it as it's a bad thing. And he's been able to just completely love himself, even though that part of him exists, because there's a difference between knowing that it exists and not being able to control its existence and how it affects you, right? He obviously had all the self-control in the world, but he felt like he had to hide that part of him from the world because it was so awful.
Right.
So it also created this anxiety around interacting with people, right? Because what happens if like something happens, right? How am I going to have the self-control when that part of me exists? So, in ACH, the clients are always the ones who come up with their own solutions. It's not a me job, that's an inside job. So I'm just there to get you to the place where you understand yourself, but it's your job to take the information that you know and now make it beneficial for you, right? Release something, keep something, whatever works for you. But he was able to finally let that go. And he was like, you could turn the video back on now. So we did, and we finished up the session. But like, what a powerful moment for somebody to embrace the dark side, right? Isn't that what like Star Wars is all about in reality? Right? It's all about manifestation. It's all about magic, and it's all about the dark versus the light, right? The internal struggle, metaphorically, that we all go through.
I'm an obnoxious Star Wars fan, so
you already have the insider information. But there's part of you to protect your young. Like, there's nothing wrong with that soprano aspect of yourself, as long as that person, that aspect of yourself, doesn't all of a sudden take the wheel, right? And you go off the rails. But what would make somebody triggered enough that actually, the switch flipped, right? It happens all the time, realistically. So if you didn't have the self-awareness, it would be very easy for Tony Soprano to take over. But in reality, you've done all this self-work, you have all this self-awareness, and that's just one fractionated aspect of yourself. So it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It just means like you are this overwhelmingly overprotective person of your daughter, right? Your family means so much to you, and you would do anything to save them.
Yeah. Do you know about the sheepdog mentality? Have you heard of that?
Like rounding up the sheep?
Kind of.
Like its ultimate job?
Yeah, kind of. It's a whole philosophy that we used to teach and embody in the military. And the core concept is that within any, just say you take 100 people, just random people, there's bound to be, if you imagine them as sheep, there's bound to be one wolf in that crowd who just wants to be a predator and wants to hurt and wants to eat and all that kind of stuff, right? But then you have to have, so the idea is that when people first started herding sheep, they had problems with predators. You had, things with fangs and clogs and wolves and coyotes and all that kind of stuff that we as humans couldn't compete with. Like, I don't have the speed of a wolf. I don't have that. So we have something else. We developed the sheepdog because the sheepdog has the teeth and the fangs and the vision and
it matches
it's basically a wolf that we've kind of like adopted and taught it to behave, right?
Yeah.
And so, but the thing is that at its core, it's still a wolf. So, and left alone, if it's not trained, it'll eat the sheep
as well.
Yeah. So one of the things that we recognize about ourselves in the military is that the military is a very self-selective group of people. And 9.5 out of 10 people that you talk to, well, I guess I'll say 99 out of 100. A lot of people that you talk to, if you get down a little bit deeper, they'll recognize that there was something within them. They saw that wolf within themselves. And they knew that there was something dangerous about themselves. And if they didn't find a way to discipline that, it would become destructive in the society.
Right.
And so that's one of the reasons why I think military service is very, very important for especially young men, but for young people across the board, because we all have that kind of monster inside of us. And if we don't discipline it, if we don't learn what it is and learn how to apply it in certain situations, then, then that could become very problematic. So what I always told, my airmen and stuff like that is, when I insisted that they showed up and they had their boots polished and they had their hair cut and that they were shaved and that they had their uniform looking good and that, their finances were in order and they weren't drunk and they weren't, they were like, I said,
Focus.
that's how I know, just at a glance, I know that you are maintaining your sheepdog mentality and that you aren't going to become a problem because, you're 18, 19, 20 years old, and I'm handing you a weapon and I'm asking you to be willing to go kill people. And if I don't know that your sheepdog, if I don't know that your wolf is under control and behaving like a sheepdog, I'm not comfortable giving you a weapon, because that could turn on me. It could turn on the other sheep. It could turn on, like, who knows what could happen with that, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like I think, especially like the fellow that you were talking about, we forget that that's a part of us, and that we can integrate that and use
It's
it.
such a survival aspect of ourselves, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
we can all turn to beasts, but why call it a beast? You know what I mean? Remember,
Yeah.
why call it a predator? Why call it something bad, right? Because what if we truly understand that every aspect of any human exists within us, like the worst parts and the best parts, and we just know that, like, as far as integration goes, like, if we just accept that aspect of ourselves and we don't judge ourselves for it, then we can have a beautiful life experience, right? But when we start labeling things like monsters and, that kind of thing, that's a negative connotation, right? So the person now becomes torn with the idea that they could be that person, right? And they've all of a sudden created it as a bad thing.
There's a story called Iron John. There's a book called Iron John, written by Robert Bly. And this is probably late 80s, early 90s. But this had a huge impact on me. But it's an old fable. The story of Iron John is, and the core idea is that there was a forest, there was a kingdom, and he had a forest, and somewhere he used to send hunters in, and they would never come out, and he could never figure out what was happening. So this one hunter came, and he had an idea what was going on. So he went and found this pond and drained all the water out, and at the bottom of the pond there was a man down there, but it was like a wild man covered with hair and mud and just like rusty, and what you'd imagine a man would if he lived in the bottom of a pond and like ate humans. Like that's what that creature was.
Yeah.
So they called it Iron John, and they brought it back to the castle, and they had it in a cage. And there's I won't go into all of the story. It's a great story, but it's that the idea of the story and what comes out in the book by Robert Bly is that that's the part that's within each one of us, that Iron John. And throughout the story, there's a little boy who's he's the prince of the castle, and he ends up befriending Iron John and learns that Iron John has magical powers. And so he helps Iron John break out of the cage, and he goes and lives freely in the woods. But then as this boy is going through his life, as he needs something, he can just go to the edge of the woods and he can call Iron John, and he'll come out and he'll grant whatever wish he wants. So he ends up, like marrying a princess and raising an army and like doing all this amazing things. But it's because he's integrated that. He's welcomed that as a friend. Instead of keeping it in a cage, instead of keeping it buried in a pond,
Understanding.
he's elevated it to be an equal with him, and even in some ways superior to him, because he recognizes how incredibly powerful this force is. It can far subdue him and consume him, like as it has done before. But when he respects it and leaves it and to have its peace, then he can harness that energy and just do tremendous things in his life.
Yeah, that's an alignment with the shadow work, right? That's an alignment. That's an alignment with AI versus humans, right? Like,
oh man, that's
like
a
those
crazy
conversations,
subject,
right? But it's like you can apply that to everything. You can apply that story to everything, right? If you just embrace all the aspects of you, and instead of making it the villain in the story, making it the bad thing, if you just embrace it and like learn how to utilize it, hone it, right? Make it worth something to you, and it becomes your own magic, right? Your own access to creation. That's a pretty cool story.
That's a great story. It's one of my favorite stories.
Yeah. I used to be a reader as a kid. I haven't been much of a reader as an adult. I have all these stacked books, and I have all these like downloaded, paid for books on my Kindle, and I just never get to anything. I will eventually.
You know what? You know what I found? For a long time, I was a writer. My degree is in writing, and I wrote fiction and stories and poetry and technical books. I ended up being a writer for the Air Force, even. And I used to be an obnoxiously avid reader. On average, I would do 70 books a year.
Amazing.
And recently, though, maybe over the last 5 or 6 years, that has slowed down to the point where I won't read an entire book like over a year. And I used to think that was bad, but then I started looking at the pattern, and it's like what I've done is I have gotten it down to a handful of books that I revisit over and over and over again.
There you go.
Like there's 3 or 4 fiction books that I just really, really like them, and I'm like, there's a book by Dave Mitchell, I think his name is, called Bone Clocks. And just a brilliant story. And I can never get enough of it. I just listen to it over and over.
And every time you do that, you actually hear something new.
I hear something new. I learn something else about the characters, right? And then I've got like A Course in Miracles, The Kabbalion. I have Power versus Force, and The Eye of the Eye. And what's the other one? Yeah, and that's pretty much it. And then, other ones that I use for reference, but I've just got like a handful of books, and I can just carry my important library with me everywhere I go. And then I've just got it,
Yeah.
But anyway, so tell me about, so you've got a website and people can book sessions with you, and tell me about how all that works.
Yeah. So my website is lifetransformationsolutions.com. I have a tab on there that says sign up here. And so I have like the health coaching, the one-on-one ACH sessions, or you can sign up to learn this modality because I'm a licensed trainer. There's a discount on there right now for podcast listeners. You just click on the link and it brings you to the current pricing. But yeah, so I have a masterclass coming up in 2 weeks.
What's the health stuff that you do? You've mentioned sleep. You do sleep therapy.
So with ACH, I just found that people who deal with sleep issues like insomnia and stuff, I am really good at helping them get that result. So that's my niche. But health coach, I'm a certified health coach. My background's alternative medicine. I have my degree in science with my major in that. And so being somebody who loves fitness, loves a healthy lifestyle, my whole house is green and has been for years. My products are all clean. I help people with changing the way that they eat, getting more comfortable with adding consistent fitness in their life, reduce stress, like have good stress management skills, and help them change their lifestyle in a way that is in alignment with who they really are and what they're trying to accomplish in life. So, big or small, whatever the issue is. And then I utilize ACH in that coaching so that I can help them move past their quicker, because I feel like if you have somebody who wants to do something and they can't, you're not going to force them, right, to make the changes. It has to be an organic, intrinsic thing that they believe that they can do. And so I just help them find that part of them and help them move into that best version of themselves a little more easily and more quickly. Because ACH is such a rapid modality, like as far as getting results goes. So the health coaching is there to work one-on-one. And then I train people in ACH, and at the end of the year, I'll be doing a master's of ACH, so that people who have been my students, because it's a full-time program. So like once you join, you're joined for life. So anytime I have a feature masterclass, you come. Anytime you want to watch old ones, you have access to those resources. You have a community of students that you can practice with, hone your skills. You have my mentorship, monthly meetups, and stuff like that. So it's just a one-time buy-in program that you never have to pay for again. So that's part of the one that's up there right now.
Oh wow. Where do you host that?
Mm.
On Zoom?
Yeah. So I have students in Canada and Washington, all over the U.S. Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I have a now, as you were talking about saying all that, I was just thinking how incredibly important all of those things are. When I got out of the military, I've always wrestled with, not always, ever since I was 17, I wrestled with alcoholism.
Mm.
I don't go to meetings, but I have practiced like the 12-step programs and stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, hi, I'm an alcoholic.
My mom's a drug and alcohol abuse counselor. After
Okay.
years of when my parents split up, I went to college. My sister went at the same time, and I lived with her and helped her raise her baby. And my mom was living upstairs with the younger kids because there's 9 of us. And she went to college at the same time for drug and alcohol abuse counseling. She's been
Oh, wow.
sober in an AA for many, many, many years, and
Yeah.
she's really good at what she does. She worked in one of the top 3 rehabs in the nation.
Wow.
Which just recently closed down, unfortunately, because the funding that they didn't have anymore. But she's
They're
still doing the work.
Florida?
She's in New York.
But where was the rehab?
In New York.
In New York? Okay.
In New York. Yeah, she's got a lot of connections down here in Florida to like the halfway houses and rehab centers and stuff like that, like the relationships that she built. Maybe one day it'll be an option for her to come down here and just join and do that. But she's past retiring age, so she's doing a little bit of work here and there. Still now she's working more with like teenagers, like young teens, to help them break out of the like behavior and hopefully put them in a different direction as far as like as they get older, not sticking with like the alcoholism. But alcoholism has always been a part of my experience. I haven't had a drop of alcohol since September 2019.
Wow.
I don't drink. I don't do caffeine. I don't smoke. I don't do any drugs. All I do is herbs. Not in the marijuana sense, but all I do is healing herbs and nutraceuticals. So
yeah, I still use caffeine on and off. But I really like coffee.
yeah.
I love coffee. So, but I used to be just crazy about it and drink way too much. So, but now I allow myself I like to have a latte in the morning, and that's it. And then maybe sometimes just a cup of black coffee in the afternoons. But just if there's nothing going on, I just want to chill, or maybe I want to focus on something. So I've moved away from being enslaved to coffee, and now I can use it as a tool or use something that I can enjoy,
Okay.
But,
for sure.
and I've been sober since January.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I've had a lot of different battles with alcohol. I've gone for periods where, I go for 6 months, or I go for, I think the longest I ever went was maybe 9 months. And that's probably because I was deployed. But other than that, since I was 17, alcohol has just been part of my life.
It's a part of most people's lives. Like people celebrate
really
alcohol. They celebrate with alcohol. If you, I keep seeing like commercials on TikTok and stuff about like, I don't always drink alcohol, but when I do, it's like, why do we celebrate the poisoning of our bodies? I don't understand it.
Yeah.
But if you want to kind of get more away from like the effects of caffeine, like decaf, okay, it's one thing. If you like the taste of it, but if you're looking for the effects of caffeine, there's so many more things that you can utilize that can give you the same effect without the negative effect of caffeine. And since you're a reader, read the book Caffeine Blues, and you'll see how much it affects us on the physiological level as far as cells are concerned. And
Caffeine
Blues. It's one of the best books you can read if you're looking to eliminate caffeine from your experience. Not just coffee. Like if you're just one of those people who drinks a lot of coffee and you love it, this book's probably not for you, because you're going to learn a lot of things about it that you're not going to want to know about. But I started out like you. what year was it? Back in 2000, between 2007 and 2009, when I was with my ex, I was engaged. He was a police officer. And we just, too much like drinking, partying, and all that stuff on the weekends and whenever he wasn't working. And I woke up one day and I was like, I don't want to drink. Like, it was right around New Year's. And I was like, I'm done. So I quit drinking, and I would tell myself, like, I'm not drinking again until July 1st. Then I would start drinking. For 6 months I'd drink, and then the next year I'd do the same thing. I'd quit. So for 3 years in a row of being with him, I was like, I'm not drinking. And he couldn't understand how I could just one day just drop off and be like, I don't want it anymore. Right.
Yeah.
But then I slowed down, got into massage school, and we started, me and him, because that's where I met him, my partner. We were partying and drinking. And with all the massage therapy that I was getting in school, I was too clean to drink. Like, I realized that it was affecting me negatively more and more, as far as like hangovers and bloating and headaches and all that other stuff. And I was like, I started to slow down, and then I had kids and I would only have wine. And then I was like, I'm not doing that anymore either. We went out for our 10-year anniversary. I felt like I was literally dying the next day, and I haven't touched a drop of alcohol since. So it's a progression, right? The cleaner your body gets, the less tolerant of those types of things you are.
Yeah. I found that for me, well, one thing is I'm 50, and what the hell am I doing? This is stupid. But the other thing is that my wife and I, our marriage had a dark night of the soul a couple of years ago. And we almost didn't pull back from the edge, but we did. And I found that when I drink, well, the crazy thing, like if I went out tomorrow, but like today, if I had a beer today, 2 weeks from now, I'd be drinking vodka straight from the bottle on my drive home from work. Like, that's it. It goes there very, very
progresses
quickly.
That fast. Yeah.
Yeah, really quick. And so I just have to not be around it, you know. And I used to make an excuse like, well, you deserve it. It's been hard. You know, you got like, you know, your boss was a jerk today, you know, or you just got this promotion, you can celebrate, you know. So I make up these excuses. But then I recognize that, like, but then I'd say, but, oh, somebody's here. Can you hear my dogs barking?
Yeah.
Somebody's here. My dog Jersey, she gets really excited when anybody comes to the door. But
so whenever you drink,
yeah, whenever I drink, I get my just my shit filter just goes, it's gone. And I'm a Capricorn, and like just a touch of Asperger's and a little bit of ADHD. So the things that are on my mind are like
amplified.
Really sound like an asshole. Because I'm just very blunt. Like, this is what I think, and if you don't like it, you know. But I think the last thing, my wife and I were fighting, and I was drinking, and I said to her, I said, look, here's where we're at. I said, you can either unfuck yourself or go fuck yourself. And I just walked out of the room. And I don't know if you know any women, but that's a bad thing to say to your wife. And yeah, she was so mad at me. That just like, and I heard about that for like days. She was just pissed at me, like wouldn't talk to me, and rightly so. Yeah, understandably, you know. And I just remember thinking, like, why, you know, I've done all this work to try and.
Why would I keep undoing it?
Yeah, like, why are you doing this? This is beyond stupid, you know? And plus, and I already knew how bad it was for my body. I knew, you know, what alcohol does. I knew that, yeah, I knew all those things. It's poison in a pretty package is what it is.
Right.
But for some reason, that last time, like we talked about earlier, sometimes you need a traumatic event to like trigger the change,
out of it. Yeah.
to trigger the identity change. And that was the thing for me, because I saw my wife's eyes,
the pain,
and I saw how deeply I hurt her by not
the conscious the unconscious payoff of whatever the alcohol was doing became less important than the unconscious payoff of what you and your wife had in
Yeah.
that moment, right? Yeah. You did not, like, it would kill you more to lose her than it would for you to lose the alcohol, which is where the mind shift happened,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
To be able to shift out of that behavior. And that's the way that we work as humans. It's just part of our learning experience here on Earth School.
Yeah. And I used to use the excuse of alcoholism and depression and all this other kind of stuff is part of the excuses that I brought in. But one of the other things that came to mind while you were speaking before is that the biggest help that I've found, and I don't know if it's just the way that my brain works or if more people are like this, whatever, but I find that when I have a definite daily routine every morning that I do, which includes physical fitness and also includes weighing myself. I know a lot of people say that you shouldn't worry about your weight and all that kind of stuff, but for me,
for you, it's a thing that keeps you on on the target.
Right. So I keep a spreadsheet with my weight. I weigh myself every single morning, and then I look at what did I eat the day before, how much water did I drink, what was my fitness routine, how did I do it, and by doing all of that, I've finally been able to get my weight control journey under control.
Yeah, you're rewiring.
You're
rewiring how you do things for optimal results. That sounds very military, like that structure that you have, because like that was instilled in you in so many years of being in the military. That structure and discipline that was probably like hammered into you that entire time of being there is the reason why it's so easy to create that morning routine and stick with it. But people don't get far if they don't have goals, right? If you don't have like something in mind, you would have stopped doing that a long time ago because it would have had no benefit, right? So you've created this thing in your head, like, this is what I want and this is how I get it, and I'm going to stick to it. And it's what become like a lifestyle for you, right? Yeah. So you're going from a habit of behavior to a lifestyle.
Yeah. And I've learned just adopting that is, I've changed and grown so much from just making those couple little tweaks to my morning routine. It's been amazing.
Changes everything.
One of the things that I learned through transitioning from the military to civilian life is that when you're in the military, and when you're in religion and when you're part of those worlds, you have discipline imposed on you.
Yeah.
So when I was a Christian, I was always worried about, burning in hell. Am I offending Jesus right now by looking at these pictures, or, by saying these words, or by speeding, or, whatever it was. And that was always something that was external. And the same thing when I was in the military, I had external discipline. Like I was told, your haircut has to be this, your fitness standards are this, you have to wear this, you have to go here. And so discipline was always external. And veterans, I think, the ones who haven't fully integrated that into their persona, when they get out and all that external discipline is gone, then
they crumble.
Yeah, they completely crumble, especially the men. It's way worse for men.
Yeah.
I read a study a few years ago that female veterans have they have a very, very much lower mental health risk.
PTSD and all that stuff.
PTSD is still there, but they have the same symptoms, they have the same traumas, they have all the same sorts of things, but it doesn't last as long because they actually go get help, and they follow through with the help.
Necessarily do, yeah.
Right, but the guys are like, I can handle this, I'm fine, it's whatever. I don't want to admit that I'm weak. Instead of saying
that's what our society has done.
Yeah, and well, I feel that the greatest the worst thing that we have done in our society is to discourage men. Well, discourage men from being men, first of all, but more than that, by disallowing and not encouraging or even mandating fraternities.
Yeah.
Like men need to
Be men.
you need a third place. Men need a third place. So what that means is that you have your home and you have your work, but you have to have a third place where you're allowed to be a man, and not in the stereotypical like drinking and strippers.
No, just like
none of that.
the
But a
energy of
place,
being a man.
yeah, we have to go and be around
There's
other
a
men.
place like that
Mm.
in Bali. It's called Bali
Really?
Chamber. Yeah,
Oh,
this
wow.
guy created in the mountains like this retreat. Only men. They work out the
Yeah.
whole time. They set their like goals. They eat meat, and more meat. Like it's men only, no vegans allowed. Like
Yeah.
it's where men can be men.
Yeah. Well, we used to
And
have,
yeah,
we used to have, Masonic lodges everywhere. I remember
yeah.
when I was a boy going to men's prayer meetings, and my grandfather was the pastor of one of the earliest mega churches in the Boston area.
Mm-hmm.
And they called it Fellowship Hall, and it was the basement area, and it was probably like 120 feet by maybe like 60 feet. It was a big basement, and they would have men's prayer breakfasts and men's prayer dinners, and
Wow.
all that kind of stuff. And once I was old enough, I would go and be there in the men's prayer meetings, and my grandfather would get up and start the prayer service, and then all the other men would stand up and they'd have their arms around each other and they'd just be praying, and you couldn't get a word in because these men were just like, they were praying together, and they'd be weeping. And but it was an amazing thing. Now looking back on that, I see, oh, that was an amazing thing that we had in our society, that men could do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But when was the last time men got together and prayed and cried? It's got to be incredibly rare if it happens at all.
Yeah.
Let's do a fake ad for a real thing. Hi, folks. Sean again. Some of you have asked what this weird strappy thing is that I wear on my wrist. And I got to tell you, it's absolutely amazing. It uses some ancient technology that has almost been forgotten by humanity. And the ancient technology is called your eyes. Because here's what's happened. Here's what's magical about this, is that if you want to know what time of day it is, you can just look at the watch, and the information that's in the watch immediately jumps into your head. You don't have to swipe, you don't have to ask it anything, and it just knows that you need to know what time it is right now. It's the most amazing thing. And if you want to know, also you can tell what month it is. You can know what date it is. You can even know what day of the week it is. And if you want to, you can know how many seconds have gone by since the last time you looked at it. It's amazing. And you know what's even cooler? Look at this. You can take it off. It comes off. It's very incredible. It's made of really kind of inexpensive crystal and some stainless steel. It has a leather strap on it. But the most amazing thing is, guess when the last time I charged this was? Never. I paid like $50, and it comes with a battery that's inside, and the battery in here lasts like 6 years. I mean, try to do that with your iPhone or your Android or anything like that. Listen, you think you've got smartwatches, you think you've got all this kind of cool technology, but there's no other technology out there that just knows what you need and sends the information directly into your brain. It's very, very cool. Today's episode is brought to you by a wristwatch. So in the beginning, I asked, this is a kind of a new podcast, and if you were gonna tell somebody, what would be the idea that you'd want to convey to them today?
So I just did a post on this 2 days ago. So what I would say is our problems are always elusive to us, and if you've been feeling like you need to do some kind of self work to understand yourself better, or you want to get rid of an issue that you've been struggling with for a really long time, and you're just further and further away from understanding it, and it's not working out for you, do everything that you can to find, because it just might be meditation, or it could be another modality, it could be RTT, it could be whatever, but don't stop looking for a solution to the problem. Don't think that just because you haven't found it already doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, because I've done all the new age stuff over the since 2010, since I got involved in doing massage therapy. And it took me 10 years to find the thing, 12 years to find the thing that changed my life. And it was just persistence and being consistent with wanting to figure out who I am, what I want, and where I want to go. So don't give up on yourself. Keep looking for the thing that may ultimately be the life-changing experience for you.
I love it. That's a great place to stop.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time, Regina.
Bye, Sean.
Bye-bye.